Hey folks, welcome to Guitar Daily. It's Nick Granville coming to you from Wellington, New Zealand. So I had a couple of gigs in the weekend at the Wellington Jazz Festival. I did my double drummer gig with two drummers and a keyboard player and then guitar. And I took my Fractal FM9 to that one. The reason I took the FM9 over the FM3, which I've been using a lot for live, is that I wanted to. I've been kind of experimenting with some new sounds, which I was doing on the FM9 because it's my setup at home here, and I thought I'm going to take that because I hadn't had a chance to kind of transfer that to the FM3. So I took that, and it would all worked really well. Sound was great. I took my little FR10, got the job done right, and then the Saturday night gig, I had a jazz gig, so I thought, well, what rig do I want to bring to the Saturday jazz gig? So I took my little Victoria 2112 guitar amp, not a digital setup, and because I knew the in-house amp there was a Fender Blues Junior, and I know Blues Junior wasn't going to cut it. It wouldn't get enough volume. It would be kind of one of those things where I'd be struggling to get a clean enough tone, especially for playing jazz stuff, right? Although I do like to drive it a little bit. So I brought my amp along, and then I ran them side by side with a little small pedal board. And the idea of that being too that I was hosting the jam session later on that night, and could split them up. I could use one, whoever's jamming could use the other, and then we could have two guitars, which would be fun, right? So yeah, but it was interesting what kind of happened. Like, my first thought using the analog amp after a while was, and funny enough, I walked in, the sound guy first said, "Oh, here you are without a digital setup. You're using an analog amp." Because he's probably gotten used to me just turning up with the Fractal and kind of going direct. Which, by the way, that sound guy really likes. But it was interesting. The first thing I noticed about using an analog rig after a while of being on a digital was not the thing I thought I would think of the whole situation. I thought it'd be a feel thing, that maybe the amp would feel better or whatever, but that wasn't the case. I didn't really notice a difference in terms of like latency or groove, or I couldn't really tell in that sense. They both kind of sounded very similar. But the big thing I did notice was I missed the Fractal reverb. I had my little the Flint pedal by Strymon, and that's what I used to split out to the two amps, because actually it works surprisingly well. You don't seem to get any hum. It must be an isolated output. So I used the Flint, and the Flint reverb is decent. The tremolo is amazing, but the reverb's just decent, right? But I missed that lush Fractal reverb. It's just beautiful, beautiful reverbs in these things. So, and that was the thing I missed the most, especially on a jazz gig, because I really like having reverb on a jazz tone. To me, it's a big part of the thing, you know what I mean? And one of the reasons that so many people like Pat Metheny, for example, because Pat uses reverb and it sort of puts your guitar in a space, right? And I missed that. I was like, oh, okay, now I've got to deal with this different thing that's going on. That was the biggest takeaway from it all, which was a big surprise to me, because I thought it would be like I said, maybe the feel would be different or something. But no, I didn't really notice that, because basically with these Fractal units, what I'm doing is kind of using a Fender type amp anyway. So using my Victoria and then a Blues Junior was kind of not that dissimilar to what I do virtually. But the reverb was the one. So maybe that's where like a VP4 or something could fit into that kind of setup quite well, right? You could go out to two amps, you could have a dedicated reverb, you could have a delay, and then a couple of drives. That's probably all I'd need, right? Occasionally tremolo and occasionally chorus, right? So if I look at my sounds I have here at the moment, if I go to my scenes, these are kind of just the scenes that I have programmed into the FM9, because this is what I'd use most of the time. Clean. And on that's just a bit of verb, but a great verb. And I find without reverb, what happens for my playing is I tend to play more notes. Because the thing is, like, if the reverb's kind of spilling over into those gaps, it kind of, I don't feel I have to play as much. But when there's not that reverb there in the same kind of way, I tend to play more because I want to fill those gaps a little more. But anyway, clean, and then clean with chorus. I'm not crazy about chorus, but it's something that people ask for. Clean with tremolo. Right. And then a lead tone with delay. And then I have the same thing, but different amp model and it's crazy delay. It's a Friedman. Then the same thing, but with a Timmy pedal kind of in front of it. For maximum distortion. Really like that. And then the same thing, but without the Timmy and without the delay, and just basically a crunch. And then there's one more sound I use a little bit, which is basically the clean channel, but just drive it. It's clean channel on the edge of break it. So those are really the tones I need for a thing. So with that double amp setup, like a VP4, I could probably have got all that done, and you'd get that lush reverb back, which is one of the thing that I missed the most, which was a big surprise to me. I thought it would be, you know, something else, but yeah, it was interesting because I don't gig amps all that much anymore. I just don't. It's more a lot of gigs for me. It's backline provided, which it was on both of those gigs this week, or all three of the gigs this weekend, because it's Jazz Festival. Yeah, so it was like amps provided, and you know, backline sucks. So I'd rather just use the Fractal and go direct, and then you know, I know kind of what I'm getting and how it's going to respond. And you know, FM3 in particular is a nice small little unit. I'm away this weekend playing with a symphony orchestra, and I'll take the Fractal and FM3 and I'll just go direct. I was talking to the MD this morning, so I'm just going to go direct, and we'll that'll be all I'll need. It'll be awesome. Anyway, thanks so much. If you found this useful, please subscribe. I post every day on YouTube. My name's Nick Granville, as I mentioned. I'm a professional guitar player from Wellington, New Zealand. I do lots of stuff, session work, recordings, orchestra dates, theatre shows. I've got my own albums out, all these kinds of things. Yeah, so if you like this, please subscribe. Thanks. See you tomorrow. Cheers.